Hi there, and welcome to the fifth episode of All Things Considered. All Things Considered is a South African podcast that focuses on exploring the various contours of African life through the work of young African scholars in the humanities. And I am Dr. Olerato Mokomosi, and I am your host. I'm also an academic philosopher by profession, just in case you want to know. So the topic of today is going to be of quite a sensitive nature, so viewer discretion is advised. I have a few questions to ask the audience just to sit with. Some of the questions include whether South African men have ever considered what it's like being a woman in this country.
Mm.
Have you ever considered how the intersecting identities such as race, gender, sexuality, class, right, influence the experiences of gender-based victims online? Have you ever considered the roles of digital platforms in both perpetuating gender-based violence, but also being a potential solution to them? So today I'm at least joined by someone who has actively entertained these questions in their research. I'm joined by Aphiwe Mhlangulana, right, a PhD candidate in psychology under the Decolonial Feminist Psychologies Hub at UCT. We know each other more closely as HUMA Fellows, so the Institute of Humanities in Africa. And Aphiwe's research focuses mainly on exploring what she terms technologically facilitated gender-based violence, right? And she focuses particularly on the experiences of Black women as they are on the receiving end of gender-based violence on online platforms. So, Aphiwe, I said I'm going to start you with a very, very intense and I would say big question,
Mm.
you know. So what is it like being a woman in South Africa?
Mm. I think maybe to draw a picture for your audiences and maybe also yourself. So we spoke briefly about trying to be healthier in our 30s.
Yeah.
And how hard that is. And so as a woman living in South Africa, there are other issues that come into play, not just the internal work that you need to do, the internal pushing. So yesterday, as I was taking my walk, usually take like a 1 hour walk, just to be outside, to get some sunlight. Walked past a group of men. Actually, they were just in front of me, and I had to think, should I cross the road or should I go towards these men and maybe be harassed? Do I want to do that? This is supposed to be a wellness walk for me. And so I don't want to go back home with all of that in my head. And so that's what being a woman in South Africa means. Constantly having to navigate and thinking and calculating, if I walk past these people, what would they do to me? How far is this person from me? And can I actually run across the road fast enough? How far is the distance for me to actually run across the road if this person would just spring up and decide to run towards me? And so those are some of the things that we're thinking about as women in South Africa. There's so many women in South Africa who've been killed going on jobs.
Yeah.
And so that at the back of your head, you have those pictures of those women and those stories at the back of your head that I'm not safe, even on the street, even though it's a busy time. I choose times that are very busy so that I can take walks when people are driving past. But I don't know if those people would stop if anything happened to me.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the things that we face as South African women. But also the fact that you're not even safe even in your home. I might go home and someone was following me from my walk and the person breaks into my home. What happens then? So you're constantly living in fear. You want to do certain things. You want to live your life. You want that freedom, but you can't because you need to constantly think about your safety as a woman in South Africa. So those are some of the challenges that we face, especially during 16 days of activism. It feels as though there's a heavier push of violation and violence against women during 16 days of activism, you find that it's mostly that you guys, you guys have these movements happening around 16
That
days
they
of
are kind of like
Yeah.
men become more involved in
Yes.
fifth violence because they're like, how dare you kind of want to pull it out.
Exactly. So 16 days of activism for me is always a very heavy time where I'm always nervous, like I'm always anxious around 16 days of activism because I know of the heavy violence that comes as a result of having this movement. Yeah.
I see what you're saying about just that everyday experience of having to watch your back, right? But also this like structurally induced paranoia that really kind of structures your entire day. It structures your wellness. And I mean, that is such a important thing to kind of highlight, right? Of like, to what extent can you even take care of yourself as a woman in South Africa if it's difficult to be able to, for example, go to Woolies and get, nice fruits for once, or take a walk to the park, or, even stay at home and lounge around without having to worry about, did I lock my doors?
Exactly.
Did I, and all these kind of things. And I mean, what you are speaking about also reminds me of Pumla Koma's book, right? On, I think, released in 2021, the female fear factory, right? And just how the way in which South Africa is structured, especially through the protection of patriarchal normativity, right? Is structured around the protection of men and often at the cost of women.
Yeah.
Almost exclusively at the cost of women, right? Is that now women are forced to kind of condition themselves and self-police, right? At least that's what I'm getting from that book, is that there's this kind of compulsion for women, or rather, women are compelled systemically to continuously self-police their own safety. But also now, when you do become a victim, it becomes a question of, why did you not prioritize your safety enough, which is something that we see quite a lot. But as you're highlighting, a woman is constantly, at least from what I'm hearing from you, a woman is constantly weighing up the possibility of safety.
Even in malls, there was once a story where there was women were asked to stay away from a certain mall. I think it was the Mall of Africa or something, because they were getting kidnapped from the parking lot.
Yes, I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so women were thinking about ways of keeping themselves safe in a mall.
A public place.
A mall. I'm there to get my weekly groceries, but now I need to also think about, how do I keep myself safe? And some of the things was, hide your car keys, because they are targeting mostly women with cars. And I'm like, before this, we were asked to stay away from Ubers because Ubers are not safe. Stay away from Uber, stay away from Bolt, stay away from InDrive. Rather get your own car. So now I get my own car, but still I need to hide my car keys. It there's always a next step of, keep yourself safe in this way. Okay, now that this hasn't worked, keep yourself safe in this way. Now that hasn't worked, we'll find another way where you can keep yourself safe. But how about we just address the violence itself? Because the biggest issue here, the elephant in the room, is not how women are not keeping themselves safe. We have all of these things that we share with each other as groups, where we share our location. Even if you're driving your own car, I will still share my location with my friend, so that they can track my car. But what happens if this thing happens in my home? Do I share my location the entire time so that you can see that I'm at home still? So it's constantly a moving target.
And what could you possibly do? What could you possibly do? It's almost like, when people are subjected to structural violence, responses tend to be, we have to cope with it. that structural violence in the form of gender-based violence in this country, for example, is something to be coped with by women. And I think that's probably why we get these sentiments of people saying, yeah, like, do this, make sure you've fulfilled this 100-step thing. And I can guarantee you that you're going to be marginally safe, because quite frankly, it just takes still a man deciding that he wants to do whatever he wants to do to you on that day, right? And no matter what you could possibly do. So I think it's quite interesting. I like what you're raising about how in coping with structural violence, we still leave the structural violence intact. And in leaving it intact, right, it's always something to be responded to. We're constantly responding to the structural violence as opposed to dealing.
Yeah, addressing.
Yeah. Because I think there's also, like, maybe to take us slightly off track, because I think this is important, how one of the reasons perhaps why, I will contend anyway, maybe you could tell me more, of like, one of the reasons why it probably feels so difficult to kind of such an insurmountable task, like such an overwhelming task to deal with the structural violence directly, and why people kind of why women would opt to, engage in coping practices, is mainly because of a lack of due structural support for resolving these issues, in the form of, like, as we spoke just earlier about policing. And reporting cases, policing actively, like even communal accountability, communal accountability and all those kind of things. Those structures are just not there. That quite literally to me anyway, it reads as South Africa has completely abandoned women.
It's complacent. We've accepted this is part of our reality as South Africans, I think. It takes me back to a TikTok that started trending where a lady, I think she's a student in one of the Western Cape universities. She went with a friend to the D station to go report the gender-based violence case. And, it always shocks me when I walk into a police station and I see that there's a gender-based violence kind of desk where you can go and report specifically to a specific person within the police station. Because as women, we talk, I went to this police station, I reported this case, and the person was so mean to me. This lady recorded the responses from the police officer who is a woman herself. And when you get so angry listening to someone else's story, you crying, you're shaking, because you can't imagine you have just been violated. You go to the police station, they tell you to not shower, right? You go to the police station, your clothes are torn, you are not okay. You go to the police station. They direct you to, first of all, you need to go to the police station, and then they're like, what happened? And then then they'll send you to the right person. And the friend got so mad to the point where she started recording the conversation. Because this person was screaming at the survivor to say, so when this person said, come to our house for a house party, did it not ring to you that this would happen?
As in, did it not ring to you? Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the person that the station has trusted to be the safety net for survivors. I can't imagine the other people who are not trusted to be the safety net, what the response would be. If this is the response that we get, and this is the worst that I am imagining. So what would happen if this person was not at the police station and she had to disclose to the other people? So it would probably be worse than this. And
the person that police officer, we presume has gone through sensitivity training, has gone through trauma counseling training.
Exactly. All of these trainings so that they can support survivors of gender-based violence.
Yeah.
So when we talk about support for survivors, I'm just like, where? We have Tutuzela care centers, which in my opinion, I've spoken to some of the people that work in Tutuzela care centers. They're overwhelmed, extremely overwhelmed with the number of cases that they get. Sometimes the system doesn't work because they will support the survivors as court support. They're also very overwhelmed. If I'm supporting about 3 people a day for gender-based violence cases,
what's happening to me?
What's happening to me as a person? Like even I always say, sometimes I just step away from the work that I do because I do work around violence and trauma. And so I'm only dealing with the people telling me their stories. You know, I'm having interviews with people. People cry during the interviews at times. And I sometimes feel very overwhelmed, you know, by that period. You know, like it's just 1 hour, 2 hours of having a conversation with someone. I don't do this on a daily basis.
But imagine this is
But imagine it's your job, your full-time job. So we have very overworked, tired people working and supporting survivors. We have communities that still don't see gender-based violence as a huge impacting issue. If something happens to you, they would rather, you know, like victim blame. Why did you do this? Why were you drinking? And all of those things. I honestly don't know how we can create a system that is supportive to survivors of gender-based violence. South Africa needs a lot of sensitivity training as a country.
I just put it in all classes. Honestly.
Like first year, when we get to university, it should be a course that's taken. Primary school, we should be teaching young kids about as a country that's trying to heal from a very violent past, as a country that's seen as the rape capital. What are we doing about those kind of things? We need to actively do things.
And what are we doing pragmatically, as opposed to, you know, I don't know about you, but I do get a sense of awareness fatigue.
Honestly.
To what extent are we just going to be aware that this is a problem and actually start doing something about it? You know,
I think we're
quite aware. We've been aware. I mean, 16 days of activism has been around for as long as I think we've been children.
Love life.
You know,
has been a thing.
Yeah.
Soul City has been a thing.
Yes.
Intersections has been a thing.
Home Affairs, all those
all of
shows.
These things have been things where we were taught about. Like, come on, I wanted to join Love Life when I was like 10 because I saw the impact of that movement. I was aware of what was happening around me through also City. So how much more awareness do we need? How much more?
The story you just shared about, you know, this woman and her friend who went to the police station is really testament of how we really don't have a civil protection system in this country. We have a criminalization system to some extent, right? And also, even then, right? But even like just the basics of like civil protection of communities in terms of policing, you'd have to wonder who these institutions are for, who are the courts for, who are the police for. You know, if everyone has to now kind of be funneled into the centers that you were speaking about, who are already overworked, you know, what is the purpose of our public institutions if they cannot do
the
work of, resolving these social pathologies. But I think, let's drive this conversation into, as you just raised, the TFGBV, right? Because a lot of people, even before, hearing from, and I'll admit this, like reading the work, when we think about GBV, we tend to think of it as a physical manifestation, right? So we think of it as intimate partner violence. So what's this interpersonal violence that's happening between people? We think about it, and the more that people know, maybe, some people don't even know that there are different forms of abuse, for example, right? They'll think that, abuse is just if someone is beating you up or, someone sexually assaulted you. But you'll be like, well, there's more to abuse. There's financial abuse. There's blah, 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 right? So that's already like kind of, already an aspect that I think is missing in public discourse. But then now you're adding, I think your research is adding a different dimension to it, which is to see the technological space, the digital platform space as a set of GBV. So you speak about technologically facilitated gender-based violence. So can you give us an indication, just like a brief indication of what that actually is? What is that?
So I think I always try to emphasize that it is an extension of gender-based violence, the gender-based violence that we see happening in general public, and it should not be seen as anything independent of that. Because once we separate it, then we're creating a new kind of thing that, now we have to deal with this new thing. It's not a new thing. It's just an extension.
There's like a filtering.
Yeah, there's a filtering. Yeah, it shows us the fluidity of violence within our society. So with the gender-based violence in general public, where we see it happening in schools, it's happening at workplaces, it's happening in different spaces. And so now we see that gender-based violence now being filtered into the online spaces. Because it's the same people interacting in society.
Let's not forget that.
Yeah,
we don't all of a sudden become
new people.
No. We are the same people. Albeit we can behave differently online, but we are still
the same people, you know? And so we have the same ideas, and we bring those ideas that we have been exhibiting in general society to the online spaces as well. So trying to maintain the kind of gender hierarchy where we find Black women most specifically at the bottom of that gender hierarchy. And so those same ideas of oppression that feed the oppression of women, and mostly Black women, we see it happening on online spaces. So what it is, it's just gender-based violence that's happening on online spaces. So they're using the internet or tech tools to facilitate the gender-based violence that they have been facilitating in general public. And so that's why when we see someone being violent on online spaces, we like, if you could go into maybe some records, you probably would find that this person has a record of gender-based violence in general public as well.
Extension.
It's just an extension. So they being themselves in all of the spaces that they occupy. In the same way that we see the groups that are disproportionately affected by gender-based violence or by oppression being oppressed on online spaces as well.
The prevalence is the same as well.
It's the same. It's the same as well. So you'll find that people who are mostly affected by online gender-based violence are women, members of the LGBTQIA plus community. So it's because the violence is just moving along with the people that perpetrate the gender-based violence.
So give me an indication at least, because I like the kind of foundation you've laid. And I know people want to think of things that when they think, they want to be able to visualize, right? And see the practicalities. So maybe we can start with, for example, when you said that it manifests through like school children and what they do. I mean, and I think maybe we should tackle it like that, tackle it by age. See what happens in the high school setting, for example. How does TFGBV manifest there? How does TFGBV manifest when we are on Twitter? For example. So can you share a bit more about that as well?
Sure.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing mostly in high school students is harassment, online harassment. We are seeing deep fakes within
Oh, so deep fakes of like
yeah. So let's say, for example, one of the cases that I read about is of this high school boy who went to this girl, tried to Shela, and this girl was like, nothing. It's not happening. And he got very angry. And this is something that we see also happening in general public, where you can't say no to me. Why won't you say no to me?
And that's enraging.
Yeah, it's
that demands something
enraging.
to be done.
Yes, it's enraging. And maybe we could also tie it into that Netflix series where we saw a young boy.
Yes,
Exactly. Yes, we're seeing it in South Africa as well. And so after that, this boy decided he has access to porn. He's going to go into one of the sites, download the video, and go to the school's website, find this girl's picture, and put it on that porn video.
Right, yeah.
So he created an entire video with this girl's face, sent it to certain people
all in the school.
in the school. It made it to the parents' school. It made it to the teacher's school. But now the issue is that the parents also don't understand this kind of technology that is being used by these kids. And so to a point where the child almost committed suicide, she was almost successful. Because her parents were like, bro, why would you do this?
And obviously they can't comprehend that someone put my picture, it's AI on this thing.
Until someone shared the original video to say, this is the original video, so it's not your child. And so that has a lot of implications for the survivor and also the other people within the school as well. You can imagine the trauma for the other students as well, who are like, so now what happens if this one boy tries to get with me?
It's
and
a form of disciplining.
Yes, it's
like kind of
like,
don't
try. Yes, don't try this, or otherwise we will do the same to you. And it might succeed with you.
But then what's funny, sorry to add, is that now it adds a layer of physical GBV, right?
Exactly.
Where now women are, the young girls are going to be kind of forced to consent, but obviously not consent, but it's still forced to say yes to being shy about to, even though they don't want to, which is still a manifestation.
Exactly. And so you find that some students will commit suicide. We had a school where a lot of fights started breaking out within the school because they were bullying each other on online spaces. And again, there were deepfakes involved as well in that school as well. So there's a lot of effects to the schooling system, the teachers as well, because now they need to be referees on the playground because kids are fighting all the time. Parents need to get involved. The community needs to get involved. There's violence within the school. Some students are very triggered. Psychologists need to be brought into the school so that they can speak to the students. And that messes up the experience of the kids within the school.
So I think what I'm noticing is TFGBV manifests not limited to, but there is a sense of humiliation, a desire to humiliate, right? There's a desire to inflict psychological trauma on an individual, right? So I'm trying to focus also on like what is the resultant harm, so that people can really get a sense of, yes, it's not immediately physical as it's happening on the space, but as you're also pointing out, it can have physical consequences of that. Psychological harm coupled with humiliation results in quite literal physical harm on the individual, right? But also, in a lot of ways, the digital space can create, and we'll talk about this a bit more, it can create this kind of distancing, right? From what you're doing, so that in comparison, people can tend to think, well, that well, it's better than actually getting
Yeah.
assaulted.
Mm.
And then you're like, no, but that's pretty much they are extensions
Yeah.
of the exact same
Yeah.
thing, you know.
Mhm.
So I think I appreciate that framing. So you're speaking also about the human rights
Yeah.
defenders. Yeah.
And then also people who challenge systems of oppression. Your activists. So my work focuses on journalists and bloggers that write about feminist issues.
And especially like the ones on Twitter. I've seen a few of the comments on, I mean, I'm not going to name the people just, but
Yeah.
like I've seen the number of comments on feminists that I follow as soon as they say something. But
It goes down.
yeah, it goes down in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So with them, you'll find that they'll be doxxed.
Can you just explain doxing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they'll share your personal information. So they'll share where you work, your home address, your phone numbers. And at times they'll share, if you have kids, they'll share your children's school address. And at times people will even harass you to the point where they're harassing your kids as well. Because how dare you challenge this specific person who we see as being powerful. So they'll share pictures of your child, maybe in the playground, to say, we are very close to where your child is, by the way. So you better act right. Yes, so you better act right. And so there's also, you spoke about humiliation. They'll always speak about, the appearance of the Black woman. They'll always speak about the appearance of the person that they want to abuse on the online space. And that's why when I first met you, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be on camera. Because people will always find, oh, why does she look like that? Why is her stomach like that? Why is this like that?
Oh, yes.
Oh, she is so dark. Oh, maybe she's so light. She thinks she's a white woman, and that's why she thinks she can talk about
these issues. Yeah.
And so some people have stopped actually being activists or actually even appearing on social media spaces. You don't see their faces anymore. You don't see their physical appearances anymore because people won't mind what you have said. They will ignore the whole conversation, the important conversation that you brought to the table. And they'll focus on your appearance and they'll abuse you based on your appearance. So you will find that there are people who are, I don't like the word resilient, but who stay on those platforms and they use the abuse that is being perpetrated against them to say, I've heard it all. Yes, I have flappy arms. Yeah, let's move on from that. Have you read the article? Have you read the work?
Still listen to what I'm saying.
Still listen to what I'm saying. Engage with the work. You can speak about my flabby arms, but speak about what I have said. Have you engaged with what I've said? And so TFGBV's way of, as you said, to humiliate people from, like, to cave into what I'm trying to make you do. So it's either I'm trying to silence you, and so I'm going to humiliate you to the point where you are crushing and you stop writing. I'm going to humiliate you to the point where you agree to be my girlfriend, or you agree to us having a relationship or sexual relations. So that's what it is mostly. And we see it being perpetrated against different people. They'll use different strategies to kind of push people to the edge and for people to say yes to what they want them to do.
Oh, I think I appreciate the use of it. Ways to crush you, because that kind of visualizes the experience of GBV as, I think, this almost like the nucleus of GBV in a lot of ways, as it manifests as violence against women, is this desire to crush women into nothingness, right? And when you speak about doxing, what I'm seeing as, again, the material manifestation, the result is the threatening your safety.
Yes.
Again, kind of even, because now the worst part about it is they're already threatening a woman who is navigating, as we started our conversation with, a woman who's already navigating her safety every day. And then in doxing her, and doxing her children, right? They are attempting to kind of like break down those psychological kind of points of security, So, because sometimes we, as you were saying, like part of you navigating your daily walk is a way to convince yourself in some way that you are safe enough
Yeah,
go
to do it.
outside.
Mm.
But then if someone doxes you, what they're really doing is they're saying that they're breaking
Actually,
apart
not.
those kind of safety mechanisms that you've been trying to cope with. So they're crushing your very ability to even be able to cope,
Mm.
you know, and forcing, and I appreciate your framing of, you know, they are forcing a retreat.
Yeah, they are.
From doing the work, I guess, for human rights activists. So it's, yeah, I think it highlights quite a lot. And I think what we can do now is, you know,
Can I add one more thing?
add another thing, yeah.
So there's also economical implications in it, because a lot of people have left their workspaces because of this form of violence.
Oh yeah, true.
Like,
that's another material consequence of technology based.
So you'll find that there are people who don't write anymore. People don't produce work anymore because they're terrified of being violated. They're terrified of the violence. And it also maintains, you know, the I don't want to call it isolation, but how Black women mostly have been removed from producing knowledge. And so as a Black woman, when you produce knowledge about other Black women, or you produce knowledge on Black experiences, that's where you get the hate. I make sure that people understand the reason why I'm doing the work is for Black African women to bring the experiences into knowledge that will be created, to be knowledge co-creators with me in speaking about the experiences of violence, because those experiences are left out.
Yes, for the experiences to be known.
To be known
Yeah.
and to be considered. When we speak about digital safety, we hardly speak about Black people's safety on digital spaces. And so when a Black woman wants to bring those experiences into knowledge that is created within the academia or even through interviews and
public work,
it's challenged. And so you're trying to maintain us not having the right to produce knowledge, and for Black experiences to be left out in knowledge that is produced. And so that's the power of TFGBV, trying to maintain certain systems through crushing people to retreat back into the norm, which is don't try, don't dare involve yourself in this.
Leave the status quo as
Leave it as it is. Let's continue. It's normal. We've normalized this way of doing things. So don't try and break this now.
And also this kind of idea, I think what you're speaking about your own experiences, what I'm noticing is this theme of how dare you even think you can do anything about this? How dare you want to do something about it? You know, how dare you want to amplify voices? Or, oh my goodness, yeah. I think, you know, you just spoken now about, I mean, your own experience as a Black woman on digital platforms, right?
Yeah.
Attempting to write and produce work. I mean, you have, as you shared your News 24, which I'll also share on the video. Your News 24 article, your UCT article. I mean, even I'm sure you had a recent talk, right, at Humor as well.
Yeah.
So you are in that digital platform space, and as you've seen, as you've just demonstrated, you have experienced your fair share, you know, of these issues. But maybe give us an indication, because your research focuses mainly on Black women who are journalists and also who are digital creators, right? Mainly, who work on digital platforms, right? So can you give us an indication of how technologically facilitated GBV uniquely manifests? I mean, for those groups, yeah.
Yeah. So I think the biggest part that pushed me to do the work is reading through literature. So my master's was on the silencing of student activists against gender-based violence. And so they were protesting against gender-based violence, and in trying to get more work around this this movement, or these two movements that I focused on, which was the hashtag RU reference list and the silent
Yes, yeah.
I noted, no, man, there was a lot of violence directed at them. And to the point where we had a slogan that the revolution will not be televised. Because people were like, I feel like we're experiencing more violence on online spaces right now, and people are trying to find us through the videos and the images that are shared on
They're
online
like
spaces.
triangulating us.
Yeah,
Find us physically.
those. So let's rather not
Take video.
televise. Yeah, let's not do this. And going through them, there were white women students and white men also there in the protests. But the focus was on the black students. And I'm like, this is very interesting for me. They were talking about culture, religion. Bamban's family is actually a church-going family. How dare she walk around with her breasts out and those kind of things. And so as I was looking through the videos and the comments, I'm like, so there's a cultural aspect, there's a religious aspect to this, there's a racial aspect to this. So these are the things that are being used
as modes of disciplining.
Yeah, of disciplining this person from not participating in this movement. And then after that, reading literature on journalists and bloggers and their experiences of violence, or maybe digital creators, and their experiences of violence. I'm like, where's the race in this? Because
one thing about researchers, side notes, they hate race. Race is something people never want to touch on for some reason.
I'm like,
yeah.
You're touching on the fact that you worked with 5 people from Africa. I want to know who are these people that you worked with from Africa? Because especially if you're going to have 5 people from Africa and you have 20 from Germany and 30 from Portugal, 30 from here and 30 from here, and be the smallest demographic. So who are these people that you've spoken to? Because we need to understand that our intersecting identities actually shape our experiences.
They shape the differential vulnerabilities.
Exactly. Then read one, I think after reading a few, where race came into play, where they spoke, actually it was written by 2 black writers, 2 black authors, where they spoke about, they were interviewing journalists within their country. And they noted that some of the violence that they experienced was not actually perpetrated against their white women colleagues.
Interesting.
And sometimes when the violence for them was perpetrated, their race was the thing that was used mostly against them. To say, you are a black mother. How dare you speak about your husband in this way? And this is an abusive ex-husband, by the way.
And these people should, that's the point of even why this person is speaking like that.
The race was a big issue that came into play. And colorism, like as a these light black African women, they're very problematic. And those are some of the things that were used to against them. And so I was like, I really want to speak to black African women and to find out their experiences of, first of all, the spaces, the physical spaces that they work in. What are those experiences? Because what we're not trying to do is we're not trying to study TFGBV as this isolated incident or this isolated thing. So what are the experiences of the physical spaces they work in? And what are the experiences of the online spaces when they post their work? So thinking about all of these identities that they carry as black African women, how are these identities then used against them as ways of being violent against them? And so that's why I came to thinking about identity of these women, and speaking about their different experiences. And also because even with Black African women, the experience will not be the same. So let's have conversations about Aphiwe's experiences and what has been used against Aphiwe, and thinking about someone else who's maybe in Malawi, what issues are different? Because we have a different history. We have apartheid as South Africans, which is very recent, by the way. And we see the continuation of those ideas still now in South Africa. So how are my experiences as a Black South African woman different to the experiences of a Black African Malawian woman and a Zimbabwean woman? And taking them as individuals and understanding the experiences as individuals. And that's how we'll better understand TFGBV and gender-based violence as a whole, that it specifically tries to bring the individual.
So, yeah, I see what you mean. Because it's just, what I'm noticing from what you're saying is that as soon as we take the intersections of race, of class, even I would even say of nationality, especially in this country where we are suffering with this scourge of anti-African immigrant sentiments, all these things, even as you're saying, colorism. Because if you notice, a lot of these kind of intersecting identities come with their own stereotyping of people, right? So light-skinned women tend to be stereotyped as sexually promiscuous, for example, as out for the money, right?
Baddies.
As baddies, right?
That's the new term that I...
Yeah, but the kind of the unfortunate part of that is when they call you a baddie out for the money, that kind of now shapes what kind of things they think you deserve to experience.
And also,
right?
it also plays with... There's this idea that, as this kind of woman, I don't take you seriously. And even if you would write about very serious issues, I will still not take you seriously. Because I have this idea in my head that has been portrayed about this type of woman. And even if you're a journalist and you're writing about the state and politics and you're challenging very important things, I'm still going to be like,
this one who looks like they're classed in a particular way, looks like, I don't take dark-skinned women seriously, for example, as people would say, right? Just like those kind of things, as you're saying, seem to me to shape very, as you're saying, an individualized experience of this violence. And in a lot of ways, looking at a white woman victim and a Black woman victim, in a lot of ways, as you were pointing out, their whiteness can kind of, leave them out of kind of being subjected to all other forms of violence that are available or at hand available to be used against a Black woman, for example. So it's quite interesting that it's important to speak about race here. Because I mean, in a lot of ways, what I'm also appreciating is that you are bringing in not just the fact that race is, this thing that people have negative associations with, but also how being Black is something that is used against Black women by other Black women, of like, how dare you as a Black person do these kind of things that effectively bring eyes on us or embarrass us, or they don't act in ways that are appropriate for
as a Black woman.
umuntu omnyama. Like, we want Black women to be respectable, to be submissive,
hide what happens in the home.
Like, but see, this whole old saying of "Potsara tibedai bokhane," like to hold the knife by the sharp edge. And that just being what Black womanhood is understood as, at least in the context of this country. And how that effectively then shapes once again these very immediate responses that people have to seeing Black women kind of refusing to act
Yeah.
in ways that they are being disciplined to act by their cultures. And I think in a lot of ways, to me, it seems like it does filter, as you were saying, into, the technologically facilitated gender-based violence instances,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see that playing out a lot
Mm,
on online spaces where people ask you, would you write this about your father? Or is it because they're not your father? You guys have lost certain values. And I'm just like, I'm
mm,
writing about a corrupt politician and I'm bringing in evidence about
Yeah.
that corrupt politician. And
mm,
you are bringing in the cultural aspect. If this was your father, you wouldn't write about it. And then there's tribalism. If this person was a Zulu, you would not write about this. If this person was Posse, you would not be writing about these things. And I'm just like,
And also one is with the desire to read, you know, a Black woman dealing with serious issues as someone who is malicious, someone who is discriminating against somebody else.
yeah,
So there's even, I mean, just outside of like, when a journalist is actually doing the work, taking us back to the RU list, for example, and the protests there and, the kind of sentiments they got, it seemed like, people have this assumption that Black women who are fighting,
yeah,
are malicious. They are destroying culture. They're destroying, and that in turn kind of makes them much more kind of, um, positions them in the mind of those people as someone who's more readily kind of like, who we should more readily kind of inflict violence on. Yeah.
I'm reading a very interesting book. It's written, Can Feminism Be African?
I saw you shared,
Oh,
you were
that
sharing some, I read some of your highlights there on your story.
that
Yeah.
book is giving me nice things. And so one of the things that the writer speaks about is how within the African continent we have this thing where they say feminism is a Western ideology, right? Which then was brought in by white women who were from the West who wanted to continue colonialism, right? And because it's a Western ideology, they do not believe. So the idea for them is that feminism is we want 50-50 from them. We want to be equal to. And so the idea now, or the argument is that because of African culture, a man cannot be equal to a woman, but they can gel, like they can be, what's the term now that she used? They can be compatible.
That this yin yang
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So you can find a man that is so macho, and you can find this woman who's so submissive, who can then gel with this macho man. That's
That's
what
right.
that's the African perspective. And what the writer then argues is that does not mean it's actually going to work out. That compatibility, it does not guarantee that this relationship is going to work out.
And that is healthy.
And that it's
mutually
healthy.
beneficial.
Exactly. It's mutually beneficial, and it's going to be beneficial for the family as well. And so with the women that I speak to who are feminists, the critique is that you guys are bringing Western ideologies to us. And you can never be equal to a man according to culture, to tradition, to even religious beliefs. God never made men to be equal as women. And so those are the ideas that have been brought in, even in their writings, to say, you can't be writing about gender-based violence. You can't be talking about how men are violent towards women. It means that that couple was not compatible. And so that's how you need to be writing about that story.
Okay. So
That they were
yeah.
not compatible.
Of
Not
like,
that
and it's probably the compatibility is more
that is the
likely.
cause of the violence.
Mm,
Not you critiquing the men
mm.
to say this man was violent.
And the compatibility also, the blame for the incompatibility lies on the
for
woman
women.
for not being submissive
Exactly.
enough. So it's always like, it ends up being, why is the man did this to her
Yes.
because she didn't do X, Y, Z.
And because
Yeah.
this man has been chosen for you by your family, by your ancestors, you were supposed to be the missing puzzle of this man's life. And so you're supposed to be, because this man cannot wash the dishes, he cannot do the laundry, he cannot. So you were supposed to be that missing puzzle so that you can be compatible to this person and do the other things that he's not able to do. Instead of you critiquing the fact that as a grown man, you're supposed to know how to do these things.
How do you not know how to clean?
Exactly.
How do you not know how anything is done?
Exactly.
Except for when the only thing you know is getting in and out of this house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so they always use the mother-in-law. Your mother-in-law was this good person. This man was so happy being at home. And so the Bible says the man will leave his family for you. So why is he leaving his family if you cannot be the compatible partner for this man? And so those are the things that are brought into the writing to say, why aren't you thinking in this way? You should be, as a Black African woman who is probably also
De-Westernize yourself.
Yes, de-Westernize yourself and think in this way, which we have been thinking, which is African and acceptable within the African context.
What I like about what you're saying is that you are setting a very practical picture of just the amount of systemic support that patriarchy and men have, right?
Yes.
There's so much systemic support to be able to, they can grasp at literally anything in the air, right? Men can do that to support their statements. Yeah. And it's like, again, with the abandonment of women as subjects,
as well.
like as I think even like generally as like general subjects and beings in this world, right? There's little that women, at least structurally, can grasp at in order to try and make a case for themselves, which is as you're saying, if religion can be used against you, if culture can be used against you, if even this kind of perversion of colonial, like anti-colonial sentiments can be used against you. What is left for
me to support me?
Yeah.
And that's why I in that book I highlighted the part that says 0.5 of the history of the African continent is on Black African women. So we were purposefully left out because they knew that we could use the writing and how African women led nations successfully so. And so that cannot be written in history because we can't we would then use that to say, but Sana, I like.
And it also like it would then
need a husband
exactly
to lead an entire nation successfully. And so and that's why I'm very passionate about Black African women need to produce knowledge and need to be in conversation with each other because have different ways in which we can pass on the knowledge, the way we can think together as Black African women, because we need this knowledge. We need to be thinking together about how do we move ourselves, how do we move from this generation of women who are experiencing these things to the next generation, which will be which hopefully will be thinking differently.
Hopefully. Yeah.
Instead of all of these things, I want more of women using different ways to showcase their activism, to speak, to post videos, to let's push. Let's have things that the next generation can look and say, Mina, I'm going to produce books. where I'm
That's
traveling
your,
the world.
yes, yeah.
I have pictures of myself enjoying my travels, and those will be on my bookshelf. And hopefully my grandkids would be able to have access to those books, and they'll see, hey, my granny visited Ini, this place and this place and this place before she got married.
Mm.
And even after that, this is the life that she chose for herself. And then they can see, Ubuti, there's life
Beyond.
outside what we are being taught and what is trying to be instilled in us.
Mm. It's fascinating because now you're raising, the fact that technological spaces in some ways are, they are sites where these things are perpetrated, right? Where GBV is perpetrated, but also women on social media platforms are also kind of making use of it, right? To try and combat these narratives at the very least, right? So, I wanted to kind of touch a bit more on, again, maybe two things. Like we can briefly just touch on what in the design of social media platforms enables this kind of perpetration of violence, right? So we can touch on that. But also there's this other question about social media as a solution to this violence. And this is a question that is raised in part because over the years, right, we've seen social media movements, anti-GBV social media movements that have sought to try and do something about the crisis, right? And I think we were speaking about just earlier, and from my own kind of networks of people, I saw a number of like feminist kind of feminist scholars rather who were writing critical responses to social media movements. So I think it's also worthwhile to have a discussion on that, just to see what we could think about the kind of potential and the limitations of social media movements, right? But let's start first with that previous question.
Okay. I think mostly is thinking about who designs these.
Who designs the social media platforms?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the why behind it. The tech bros. What's the intention of designing the tool itself? And who did they have in mind when they were designing those tools? And were they even thinking about the safety of the people that use those tools at all when they were designing them? So social media pages have been very important for movement building. That's where you find your people, because sometimes it's very hard to find each other's activists within the physical spaces. I sometimes make the example of looking at UCT. You sometimes get so shocked when you find a colleague within the same department at times doing similar work to you. And you're like,
how did I not know
how did I
this?
not know, bro? Like, how did I've been here for so many years and I never knew about you and the work that you do. And so it's like that. It's very hard to find people doing similar work unless you find them on these easy to navigate platforms. The beauty of social media is that it's so easy to find information. It's like an information,
it's a well.
Yeah,
It's a
well of information. You can find people easily. You are looking for someone to collaborate with. You can find them on LinkedIn, for example, very easy. And so these social media platforms have been good in that sense. But it's now the movement builders or the activists who have decided to make it that it wasn't designed with that intention by the tech bro who designed it.
It was designed to make money.
To make money.
Yeah.
Like, and if I'm making money from people trolling a certain movement, there's more engagement around trolling. Then I'm achieving my goal. If you guys have chosen to decide that you've decided that you're going to make it something else, which I did not design it for,
That's on
then
you.
if that's on you. And so that's the beauty and the badge of social media platforms. But I really do encourage the use of social media in terms of movement building, where you find people, you educate people via social media. But then it also does not really push for change.
I feel like there's something quite interesting as well to raise. And I mean, so I teach for my first years, I've introduced like a week where I teach social media ethics, right? Just because I want students to really think about what is social media doing to us, you know?
Yeah.
What is social media doing to us? So one of the things that are essential theme in that week's content is how social media kind of monopolizes our attention, right? And it controls our attention as well. It kind of directs us to certain things. So we usually say, you know, if trolling is something that's going to get more engagement, that's probably what you're going to be seeing more of on these platforms, right? But also there's this kind of the idea that, I mean, there's been a lot of research these days that our attention spans are going down dramatically. That I think it went from 12 seconds to 8 seconds or something. I don't know how they measure it, but there was that thing. That people are able to pay less and less attention to things, you know?
Yeah.
So the social media space for me has kind of, I mean, it's also shaped by like dopamine hits, right? Of like people wanting to, see the next big thing, or see kind of like I scroll up and I hope I'm gonna find the gold at the bottom of the doom scroll, you know. So all these things for me seemingly also shape how I would think how technologically facilitated gender-based violence manifests, right? Perhaps it manifests as I mean, I was going to say earlier when you spoke earlier, it manifests as how do we understand, like rather, the culpability of us as scrollers when someone says XYZ has assaulted me and they post it on social media, right? The way in which social media is designed in the way that you're compelled to scroll past. You know, there's no kind of
sitting and engaging with it.
Social media they make money off you spending your time and scrolling continuously and engaging continuously, right? So you can find that in as much as there can be some people who also, the engagement is tied to dopamine hits, right? So people that might not necessarily come with wanting to be distressed on social media, right? So now if you see something distressing, typically people will be like, distressing, but let me carry on. Because I think in that way, the algorithmic design of social media seems to kind of also discourage paying due attention to certain things, or just, you know, that the fact that attention is something that is a transient thing, something that is temporal. It's just like it happens now and it's done. Right. So I'm saying this maybe to filter into the second part of the question, which I want us to talk about, right? Which is the manifestation of these movements.
But maybe before we move on to that question, I'm just thinking about how there's less now human interactions. Right? And we are mostly on social media. And so that's where people will want attention. And so people are drawn to what's trending right now. And if it's a violent video, you find that people will share that video. They'll have something to say about that violent video. Yeah. And sometimes you find the same people on these very harmful things because those things are trending. And that's another issue that we have around social media and tech-facilitated gender-based violence. Where people are just, it's clickbait. Like if there's a lot of interaction around something, I will be there because I want people's attention. If gossip is the thing that's doing the rounds now, if gossip around Aphiwe and what Aphiwe bought, like a fake Louis Vuitton bag, you'll find me there. You'll find me in all of these things that are about, you know, like
these
trending.
Yeah.
I will be there. And that's what sometimes hinders the movements that we have. It's people who are looking for the next big thing, and then they move on. They will
So quite literally, if something is no longer trending,
I'm leaving.
then it's like, well, I think
Honey,
my attention
no.
is due elsewhere now. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's some of the things people complain about, especially with people who are influencers at times, where you don't speak about certain things for the whole year.
Mm. But now that's 16 days of
That's 16
activism.
days of activism. There's a huge movement by Women for Change.
Mm.
And where do we see you? With your tripod in the front, leading the song.
Mm. Like,
And you're making sure, Oti, we see you.
yeah, yeah.
But where is the activism for the full year?
Mm. Where's the groundwork? Where's the
Yes.
grunt work?
And not even, we're not asking you to be a part of every march.
Yeah.
What we're asking is that if there's conversation around this, it doesn't matter if it has 2 retweets.
Mm.
If this is something that you're passionate about, be part of the conversation. Don't wait until it has blown up and then now we went activist. Because the reason why our government and these platforms do not take us serious is because they understand we are chasing that gratification. I was a part of this.
And I did something.
And I did something. And now I'm trending and people are talking about me. And they understand you're exposing yourself from these platforms. When you're posting, they know what content they need to expose you to.
How do we then kind of take what you just said and kind of see, or rather articulate what the potential, I mean, I think we've touched on the potential of social media movements, right? And the fact that they are an important galvanizing force, bringing people together, connecting people. And as we saw, I would say that on that front, the movement, that the Women for Change movement was pretty successful, right? We've got enough attention, right, for people to kind of come together, and even if it was for the day, but at least to try and make some effort to collectivize on an issue. So it's an important collectivizing force. We've touched also on the fact that, well, the problem is, the fact that this is still happening on social media platforms, and therefore the logics of social media kind of carry into social media movements as well, or I don't want to even call them social media movements, shame, because I feel like it's not necessarily that Women for Change is a social media movement, but it was just more that, that particular kind of gain more traction on social media. Right? But again, I would think that, the logics of social media presence that involve the trending, as you were saying, that involve not paying too much attention to things, that involve having transient attention to things, right? Play the role of making certain pertinent issues forgettable, or position them as things we can just move on from. And mainly because they're not kind of at the center of our attention. Because it seems like, once the date of the 21st or the 21st or the 23rd, I forgot. 21st. The date of the 21st hits and everyone did what they needed to do. We all now walk back home because, in that sense, we've done what we needed to do.
And we are happy. It's now a national disaster, but then what?
Yeah, so I think there's a question really about, and I think that's why I find your work so important, because you are highlighting the fact that the technological must always be in conversation with the physical. Always in conversation. And what kind of like, what do you think should be done to make social media more useful in enacting, I don't want to say real change as if like what is being done is not real, but it's also like enacting long-lasting action and long-lasting attention on issues.
So I think it's using social media as a tool for education mostly. people don't want to read books anymore.
Hey, tell me about it. I'm an academic and I know
Yeah, people don't
that the
want.
students at the very least, they don't want to read anymore.
You
Sorry,
send me
guys.
an article, bro. What are you thinking? I'm not reading that. And so that's why I even said yes to this podcast, because I'm like, this is where the conversations are happening, and we need more of these. So use social media as a place where you where you have these conversations constantly. And that's why I love organizations such as Women for Change and how they use social media to raise awareness about specific things.
100%.
So if we had more organizations and even our government institutions like using their social media platforms, I don't want to see our president giving people, that's nice, give them roses, it's Valentine's Day. What's happening within the presidency? Give us information. What are you doing? You're going to this country. What are you specifically going there to do in this country? So use social media as a place where you can educate people, because now we find that even TikTok and all of these other social media platforms are easily accessible even to people in harsh realities. So use social media to educate people on what's happening within your country. You know, there are people who you have conversations with them. You'll try to have conversations. You'll talk maybe about, let's say, the RAN manipulation. People like, and then what is that? There's no education around these issues of what's happening within the country. And it's very painful for someone to live within the country and they actually don't know what's happening around it. They just know what's happening within our community. And how good would it be if instead of our parents sharing AI-generated cats that are singing, they would be sharing information with each other? If we were using social media, if we're using WhatsApp, for instance, to share information, they're being shared in these church groups. I was asked to speak at a church. It was different church leaders. And we're having conversations about this violence. And I said, so now that I've spoken and I've said everything, what are you going to do as the church with the information that I've given you? If you want for society to change, make sure the conversations happen in every sphere of people's lives. We have curriculums with any Sunday school. If you're not teaching, you can teach London about God in the Bible. But there's a reality outside of that. We're seeing the Bible mostly as fiction right now. So what's happening in people's lives that you need to have conversations about? And you can use social media in that way. In the church group, you can have isn't that you're teaching young people about every week, so that you're enlightening abantwana on issues that are very pertinent to their survival and to their group as well. So even about gender-based violence, about there are people who actually don't even know where to access certain services. Someone was very shocked. Uti, one of the people that was at an event from Rape Crisis was talking about the services that they offer as Rape Crisis. And people in the room were shocked. And I was like, Rape Crisis has been existing for so long. And you mean OT people don't know what services they offer? And when this lady said, yeah, we have a rape crisis, and this person was like, where? Higher. So those are things that you need to be feeding the community. When a counselors, you are informing people about what services are available within our community. What is this violence that we are seeing within our community? Have those constant conversations, because those conversations trigger certain things, certain movements. And so once you have a movement, the 21st, we're having this protest. Fine, people will have protests. You know that there are people who don't even know there was a protest on the 17th of November. And this specific protest was focusing on issues affecting affecting South Africans, and gender-based violence was one of those issues. And that's the pain of having one day movement that people forget. People sometimes lose. They don't know about these things, and it goes past them. So use social media for educational purposes. Shift what we currently have, where we're being entertained by. Someone said, I'm hoping that on TikTok I don't see any videos of the Eastern Cape and Imigiti, where we post people, our families, under certain sounds, where families are fighting and our family members are drunk. Can we have different content? We're being entertained by izinto that are not supposed to entertain us. And how about there's a flooding of information, of things that get people having serious conversations, and maybe we could
Maybe
see
something could
some
happen.
change.
Yeah, because I'm even thinking that, there's something about practicing. So, in addition to the education, there's something about the daily practice of resistance, right? If you're practicing, and I'm saying the daily practice in the sense that it doesn't have to always be that when you are handling every single
You're
day,
fighting.
but there's something about even the smallest mundane things that could make such a difference. With like how your friend speaks about women, are you addressing that? Who are you choosing to be consciously associated with as a friend, right? How are you facilitating the safety of women? How are you making sure that you introspect as a man, right? How are we introspecting to make sure that we create, we carry the burden, actually carry the burden and exclusively as exclusively as possible of ensuring the safety of women, because this ties back to the earlier conversation about not wanting, like, the fact that it shouldn't be the case that women must carry the burden of their own safety. So it's those kind of similar sentiments. How do you create, how do each and every one of us take, and especially much more so South African men, how do we take responsibility for assuring safety? And that includes making sure that, in the day-to-day, because as you're saying, with TFGBV, we know that this thing happens every single day in whatever kind of manifestation. It's the subject of content, of laughs, of whatever, But how are you kind of engaging? And I'm drawn to there's this concept of the feminist killjoy. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the feminist killjoy by Sarah Ahmed, who speaks about being the person who kind of like, kind of spits on the joke against women. How are you becoming the person who's like, no, that's not on. No, that's not going to be something I'm going to be entertaining.
Don't let things slide.
Don't let anything slide. Be the killjoy. Don't think that, don't also want to maintain the peace, How are you making sure that you are engaging in those ways in your daily life? And maybe that way, there's ways in which we could potentially move beyond one day movements. And it's not the fault of Women for Change or the people who came together to address this issue, that these things do manifest they tend to manifest as one day movements, right? Or like, what is this? Is this 15 days, 16 days?
16 days.
They manifest as 16 days, right? That's how they do manifest, but it doesn't have to be that way, right?
Yeah.
And insofar as we take these resistances as daily practices, then hopefully we'll get somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said recently in a conversation I was invited to with young activists, I was like, be the boring person in the room. If people are laughing and joking about things they shouldn't be, be that boring person that actually traces off.
Mm.
And be that person who posts about serious things, like be that person who's always posting serious things. Someone said to me once, your social media is so boring. I don't even see any jolo content. And I was like, my friend, what jolo content are you looking for? Like,
Yeah.
no, like to loosen up. I was like, yeah, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to not speak about the important things in my life. And I try to do that as much as possible. And I totally understand activism is exhausting. Being the person that corrects people is very exhausting. Reading about stories of violence and trauma is exhausting emotionally, psychologically, physically, it's exhausting. And I spoke about how activism is a calling. And as a person who's called to speak about certain issues, you need to navigate that and make sure that you also take care of yourself as you're going through the activism. But please be that person that is boring and speaks about the issues.
Exactly. I'll stop us there.
Yeah.
Because I think we've had such a fruitful
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
And, in a lot of ways, I'm grateful that you did decide to take the step to be here, even though you know that you could possibly be subjected to technologically based technologically facilitated gender-based violence. So I thank you for taking that risk. And with the hopes that, this podcast becomes a library of conversations, conversations that I think are necessary for us to have as Africans, as South Africans, conversations that in a lot of ways hold mirrors to our faces, and I think help us grapple with the social ills and the social pathologies that kind of frame our existence these days. So thank you so much. And with that, this is the last podcast of the year.
Oh, we're closing it off.
We're closing it off this year with Aphiwe. Thank you so much. And we'll be back first thing in January when business kicks off, because I too, like many other people, also deserve to enjoy my December. Right?
Yes.
So with that, thank you so much, Aphiwe, for joining.
Yeah, then thank you so much for the opportunity. I always look forward to having these types of conversations, and hopefully people have learned something. There's a takeaway from the conversation, and hopefully it will drive more conversation.
100%. All right.
Thank you.
Sissy Cuts.